Hello my lovelies, hello my darlings. Okay, so this is part 2 of Anarchist Approaches to Crime and Justice. Here we go. Reframing how we think about crime. Key to broaching this issue from an anarchist perspective is to question all assumptions about what we think we know on crime, law and justice. This means both evading trappings of mainstream analysis and sidestepping the dogmas of radical discourses. Here I present some common ways of characterising the problem with a view to developing a conceptual framework that can be used for anarchists trying to navigate this issue. Crime. Crime is the term used by the state to designate behaviour it will not tolerate. Legally speaking, a crime in English law is considered an injury or harm to the state, represented in the Crown. The state then assumes responsibility for dealing with the offence, from arrest and trial to sentencing. All power and agency is removed from the victim, community and defendant and handed over to professionals. The process of trial and sentencing can be traumatic for both victim and offender, and unsatisfying for the victim. The criminal justice system cuts off an entire section of society, a marked criminal class who then struggle to be rehabilitated into the world outside. The notion of crime is used to create fear and division, and in turn serves a multitude of desires of the powerful. For instance, criminalising property damage and disorder creates a safe environment for investors, allowing capitalism to thrive. Criminalising migration by the poor maintains the integrity of borders, and thus the state, sustaining the class system and extreme wealth accumulation. The indefinite domestic terror threat justifies military campaigns abroad, while being hard-line on crime in general serves as a distraction from the root causes of social problems, and is guaranteed vote winner as a result. Control over the definition of crime protects the theft of the commons. Yes, and a string of otherwise indefensible actions by the powerful. Anarchist visions of unacceptable behaviour differ radically from the concept of crime, so no radical approach should be using the term to imagine and build an alternative reality. There are many extensive critiques of the concepts of law and crime. Kropotkin, for starters, so they won't be explored further here. Transgressions. A transgression is the violation of a social norm. For anarchists, this can be a useful way of characterising the problem, as it sidesteps current legal conventions and emphasises the subjective nature of standards of acceptable behaviour. At the same time, we anarchists reject many social norms, and transgression is necessary to resist oppressive cultures. A transgression in itself, therefore, shouldn't be seen as a problem. So this doesn't particularly help us identify problematic behaviour. Violence. The principal focus of many groups exploring alternatives to the cops and courts has been that of violence or harm, and on developing anti-violence strategies. Yet this problematization of violence is rooted in a liberal approach that either fails to see transgressions in the context of structural oppression or uses inconsistent logic in thinking about our struggles. For example, a considerable number, if not majority, of anarchists would support revolutionary violence against the state and capital, or against fascists or homophobic aggressors. Yet, for some reason, many also reject the use of violence or coercion against those who assault their partners, those who rape, and those who abuse. There seems to be a failure to appreciate the fact that those acts too are often rooted in the systems of domination that must be destroyed. These double standards suggest, at best, unjoined up thinking, at worst, a relegation of patriarchy to a place of secondary importance. Further, this negation of violent or coercive responses to rape is perpetuated by two prevailing beliefs. A, the idea that retribution is harmful for victims and perpetrators, and B, the idea that retaliation makes the victim as bad as the perpetrator. Another problem is that the word violence has come to be used in broad terms to incorporate omissions, such as the violence of passivity, and even language or ideas that have the potential to cause harm or discomfort to others. Witness recent debates around accountability processes in the US. This is another reason I find violence an unhelpful focus of analysis for anarchists. It's not violence that should be seen as the determinant. It's not violence that should be seen as the determinant factor in anarchist ethics, because there is also a violence that liberates, and because many of us see violence as playing an essential part in the struggle against the state and capital. We have a strong history of using tactics that could be considered violent. Instead, we should continue to understand these problems as issues of power, and we should seek to develop responses to domination or abuse of that power. Domination. Domination is described by Michel Foucault as relations that are fixed in such a way that they are perpetually asymmetrical and allow an extremely limited margin of freedom. In other words, domination is not merely the fleeting exercise of power over others, which, it could be argued, we all do in some form or another in our social interactions. Instead, domination is the exercise of considerable control over others, and can be understood as much as in individual terms. For example, over the course of a certain relationship, a woman has come to wield considerable control over her male partner. As in systemic terms, a man coerces his female partner into sex on one occasion. In the context of a patriarchal society in which male control over women is widespread. Reframing crime as a fight against domination allows us to reorient our focus towards structural inequalities corresponding with anarchist principles. It does, however, suffer the shortcoming that not everything that we would oppose necessarily fits neatly into structural or fixed patterns of control. Abuse of power. Approaching the issue in terms of the abuse of power, on the other hand, meets this need. We don't have a problem with power as such, but oppose its misuse and abuse to perpetuate systems of domination. Abuses cover acts of aggression which don't necessarily fit neatly into any category of structural domination, such as racism, homophobia, and so on. A good example of this is a mugging, which might involve the perpetrator exploiting their superior strength, size, or numbers. The perpetrator is in a position of power which may not necessarily, or should have to, fit within our understanding of systemic oppression, and that power, e.g. superior size, has been exploited. Yet this can, of course, intersect with structural inequalities, such as the expropriation of wealth by the poor. All factors will therefore need to be taken into consideration in any given case. So the conclusion. When navigating the minefield of crime and justice, then, we need to critically consider how we understand problem behaviour, rather than thinking in terms of crime or violence, both of which perpetuate liberal and statist discourses. An anarchist approach should be concerned with issues of power, broaching the problem in dual terms of acts of domination and abuses of power accommodates both a systemic understanding of oppression and the exploitation of superior power in a given moment. Okay, we're at 11 minutes. Now that's just an introduction to this. The next part in this zine is called Part 1, which is Part 1 of the zine, Transformative Justice. So there's 2 parts in this zine. We're going to leave that there. Hopefully I've read that okay. Some of the words in there are a bit over my head, to be honest with you. Hopefully it'll become a little bit more interesting and easy to understand as we go through it. I'm sure a lot of you will understand it a lot better than I do. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see, what sort of comments and discussions might ensue in the comments section here. Thanks for watching. Always remember, be kind to each other, be polite in the comments, please. If you get into any debates or discussions, be interested to read them. Okay. Thanks for your time, thanks for watching. Love and light. Bye-bye.